Hello again, everyone. You are really warriors to be here all morning to listen us. I think that could be very interesting to listen about these cities for the future. And now we have this panel about challenge and solutions in urban design, energy efficiency, and water conservation. So we'll talk about practice solutions in not only in urban settlements, but also in terms of housing and other examples in about living to make cities more livable, more happy, and with more identity also, because there's a lot of solutions that are different from different countries. Architectural concepts and sustainable urban planning, smart and energy efficient buildings, and construction materials are examples of solutions not only in Portugal but also abroad. Upgrading and retrofitting of Portuguese homes, for example, standards need to be introduced for new homes and buildings. Energy, water, waste, and a lot of areas that are in lack of proper not only installation but also in terms of measures that worry citizens. Are there any actions homeowner can be undertaken which are feasible and not economically expensive? So I will start to present with these big questions to Flavio Mota. He's from VivaDomus. So Flavio, there are sustainable solutions that the owners of the houses can put in practice to be more sustainable?
I think that every one of us can make the difference, okay? In our everyday life, we can make choices, and at the end, the companies, they only exist to supply the demands of the clients. That's why we keep saying if we choose products and solutions which are more sustainable, of course the market will give us that. I'd like to just say one more thing. The big question is always the financial question, okay? We keep asking, is that project financial feasible? Can we make it? Can we have profit at the end? And I'd like to say it from the very beginning. It doesn't matter if we have a lot of money or not, because if we don't have life conditions, the money will not flow at all, and we won't have any worries about our money. So it is worthy to have sustainable values and to choose sustainable products for our all day life.
Lucinda Correia is from the Architecture Professional Association. I should say that because in international, I think that I don't...
Chamber.
Yeah,
chamber.
Chamber, yeah. Yes, Chamber of Architects. For decades, architecture was seen like a plus in the buildings. When I say a plus, because normally you have some different design, I should say, and a different buildings. But nowadays it's more than that. It's not only the design project, not only the trace, but also to be more efficiently, more sustainable. How can we tackle these climate impacts that we have at urban areas with architecture?
I wrote some notes I want to address, because I think before you go to the specific questions of water and all the infrastructural things, I think all these challenge we are facing, it's a mindset and a mental problem more than it's a physical one. Sorry, to solve it, no, it's just to solve it. It's we need to change, the shift, and act, because the technology is all invented. I don't think we need to invent much more. And I think architecture, we have to go to the root causes of the problem, of course. And what you were saying about architecture, it's not quite true, because architecture has to do with inhabiting the world. And inhabiting the world has to do with being in the world. So architecture is a very interesting discipline, because it's a creative one, but also technical. We have a lot of spheres working with our discipline, but we have to have visions of things and then materialize that visions. So it's a very hard task, and it's a very difficult one. And so we were responsible since the beginning. And if we had the opportunity to imagine something, or if we imagine this world we are living on, we can reimagine it, no? So because it's a human invention. As we invented all technologies, we also invented architecture. So it's not something that was given, it was made by man. No? And this, I think, is the big challenge, to look at the discipline and what we do in a fresh and different way. And I think climate and environmental issues must be in all policies, of course, and must be in the practice of architecture. So all the practices must tackle this. And we have all these common words that you were also presenting, the energy transition, decarbonization, degrowth, so we know all this. But our actions are very slow, because we continue using these extractivist practices, mining, agribusiness, plantation, monoculture, so we continue with that. And we want to continue, but we want to solve the problem, and that is not possible. So we need to, we really need to change the way we address the problems. And I think this works by posing the right questions. So this is a physical problem, but it's also a social problem, ecological problem, economical problem. And one thing it's important is to face, and we have all this activism around this environmental jurisprudence that are putting our attention to the rights of nature and the rights of the earth. And we have to deal with this, because as Flavio was saying, we can have a lot of money, but if you don't have a place to live that allows us to breathe, this is something that is happening. No? We might not be able to breathe. So the money will be of no use. So I think this is what we should be addressing. And in this sense, I think architecture has this role as a critical role, as a political role, so it can, architects can really influence the public policies, but also the role to try to include.
You can put it out for a minute, and you can still talking with this one.
When you change, okay. So, architecture has a...
when we have a project, we never have this problem. So,
okay, thank you. So architects are, we are always causing problems, but our, okay, now it's working?
Yeah.
No. It's working now? No, it isn't.
No.
It is?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So our job is also to point the questions and try to solve them. And by doing this materialization, as I was saying, we kind of, Alvaro sees us as this saying that is really interesting, that is the architect is the specialist of nothing. So we are always dealing with a lot of specialities of like engineering, and we are always trying to put all the things together. But we don't really know deeply things, all the engineering, and we just know a little bit, but we need to kind of harmonize things. So I think this is our job now. and I will go quicker, so we have the time to discuss. But in this sense, I was saying architecture has to do with inhabiting the world, so we need to understand what does it mean to inhabit the world today with these issues, and we cannot continue doing what we did in the same way. So this is an issue, and this means also to reinvent our discipline and our practice, and maybe it's not something that we are comfortable with, but we have to try to do it.
It's like Einstein said, don't expect other result if you do the same thing, yes?
Yeah. So we have to deal with raw materials, with energy and resources, and we have to kind of have this awareness of what is our purpose in the end, and the projects will follow that purpose. And it's really interesting what was being discussed in the previous roundtable. That was the idea of having these multicultural communities and having these several contributes to answer, to give an answer, because, and this idea of inclusion also, because the city is a multicultural place by definition, no? Otherwise it would not be a city. So the city has to have the ability to include the differences and to live with that, because that's sustainable. Because we can have people working in different places and all together we can do it. And if we try to exclude that, that's something that happened to cities and is still happening. If we try to exclude some communities for the peripheries and we try to have this kind of an ideal city that has just some kind of people using the city, it's not a very interesting project. So I would stop here and maybe...
Yes, but anyway, I will ask one more question, because you get the point that I want to. It's because architecture have a big word to give about urban planning, and then when you talk about these problems that we face in urban areas to manage all these multicultural and multi visions that we have in a city, how can we give a different planning when we have some urban areas, namely in Portugal, that we have very dispersed urban construction, or even when you want to develop 15-minute cities like in Lisbon with different neighborhoods. Do we have to give some different uses to the buildings, or have to construct the different buildings?
Well, I don't think it's not one answer for that question. I think all the buildings have an identity and and we have this example in the monasteries or in the mosteiros, right? Yeah. We have a lot of them in Lisbon. And you can see that buildings with 300 years have a lot of uses, and they support those uses. So what I think we lost is this ability of creating something that has the possibility to integrate different uses. We are now this idea of monocultural thing. It's always monocultural, and this is an inheritance from the modern city, this idea of zoning and establishing all these functional things, that here is to leisure place, here is to inhabit, here is to, and the city, the origin of the city doesn't work like that. You have, of course, if you go to the Roman cities, you have all very strategical axes that are marked, but the city is very organic in a way. So. Okay. To kind of intervene in a building, it's to understand what that building is and what can be done with that building. And also put the question in the first place that do we need to put it down, or we can refurbish? And sometimes or maybe in most of the times, You just go to a building. If you are an investor, maybe you see, okay, this is very interesting to make this kind of investment, and I really don't care if the building is able to resist this change, this transformation, but it's very interesting to use this building because of the location, because of a lot of things. So it's like, for instance, if the building was a person, no, and you have a body and you have a structure, and you say, okay, you have this body, but I will make this kind of surgery, and I will put another kind of bone, but your body doesn't support the bone, but you like the bone because it's, you know, so it's kind of understanding this ability or these possibilities that the buildings and the city and these also the connections. I think it's not just about the building, it's about the relations of buildings and the proximity. When we were saying the 15-minute city, what kind of ecosystem we can create and relate so that it can work.
Okay.
And
it's... only to pass to Flavio, because besides uses of the buildings, different uses, we can also have service. Buildings can give us service. So we can compare buildings to persons, but also you can compare buildings to trees, for example. There's a lot of solutions, no?
Yeah, they are living beings, for sure. And nowadays we can start with our roofs, green roofs, for example. We can collect, and more than collect, to manage our water through these systems, which are natural. We do not need thermoplastic for everything. We can avoid. Okay, we are exactly in a place where we have, I would say, a PhD, a great PhD, which was put in place, which is the city center. After the earthquake, the city center was rebuilt. Okay. And the streets are lined, which allows the corridor for the wind, for the refreshment. The buildings are based on foundations which are made with wood. Okay, the walls are made with clay and wood. Are seismically, they resist. So what are we doing now? And I talk every day with investors who tell me, "Oh, Flavio, building with wood is very modern. It's something very new." No, it's not new. It's very old. The thermoplastic systems, the concrete is new. So we should go back to the roots to see the better solutions. And the simplest ones are the best ones, for sure.
And I should say, I didn't give this information. I didn't give you this information in the beginning because we don't have one or two speakers that cannot manage to be here with us at time. Anyway, I'm in double role, so I'm moderator and also speaker, so I can also talk a little bit about some of the...
You have a lot to say, please.
Oh, yes. Anyway, the organization already put me comfortable also to talk a little bit about my book. It's the city's mission to tackle climate change. It's in Portuguese and also in English. And you also can buy it in the white spot outside. Anyway, I would like also to talk an example that is where we are now. And the place where we are now, most of you doesn't know. This place was a quarry, you know, a place when it was the extraction of stone. Here, in all this climb, of all of this part was a place very in line with the urban part, with the urban area. You can see some image in the net that are very, very impressive. How we could transform and switch this use of old quarry to a green park. So you can search for Pedreira Marquês de Pombal or Pedreira Parque Eduardo VII. That was a big transformation in the big example that you can see how it was for 50 years ago and nowadays. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit that I want to come back to Lucinda and say that there's no impossible projects, no, to transform cities to be more livable and more sustainable.
No, there's no impossible project. You can do what you want, and we are doing what we had a lot of time to materialize all the desires, mainly men desires, I would say, that were in power and deciding. But the thing is, this awareness of the externalities that as economy speaks, no? This idea that externalities should not be paid by the community, should be paid by all. So if I want to do something that is transforming this site, and I will profit with that, I will also have to pay the harm that we have. This kind of, in the American system, these
funds, private funds for...
Sim, e como é que se diz a negociação de fazer uma coisa, que é uma coisa que a Europa não tem tão bem.
It's the lobby that they made that are
that
between
you
private
are here,
and
but
public.
then you put something better there, but you can harm. So when we are transforming, there is always an impact, ecological, social, economical, and we have to. And if we have a big discussion, when we have big works or big transformations with a group of a wider community discussion, that's interesting because you can listen to all stakeholders and you can anticipate these impacts and you can decide. What I think it happens a lot of times is we never know, when we discuss a big project, when we are discussing a transformation in the city, we never listen to the possible scenarios, the all possible scenarios and the all impacts, so we can decide. Even if when we talk about elections, we never really understand quite, it's a narrative, but it's not like very clear, pointing out this is what happens if we do this, if we do that, and then we can decide. And this is a decision of a wider range of the community, not just a few, even if are the few that are running the city council, but the community must be aware of that because we are paying so these externalities are being paid for all of us.
Exactly.
So this discussion, I would say that if we were all aware of these externalities, maybe we would be, as you were pointing out, what do I have to win with that? Of course, if you have a nice place to breed and you can breed for a long time and your sons and daughters can breed and your nephews and everyone can breed, it's good for everyone. So it's an investment on your quality of life and the quality of your community. And this is not just a decision of few, it's a decision of many. So I think these mechanisms to participate on these decisions are not quite designed. Yes. Well, I'm talking about Portuguese, of course, scenarios. But
I will put the audience to feel comfortable if you want to make any questions. Did you already search for the example that you already saw it? So how we can transform this area in this green park today. So I don't know any question from the audience that you would like to do. No? And the second one? Okay.
No.
No, you want to you are in front.
So, no, just to point it out that architects has a huge role, and as
Flavio
said, it's important when we are doing a project, we have to think from the beginning, and an architect has that possibility. We can make things with no thinking about the money, that we can provide a lowest cost project with huge solutions for sustainability. So thinking from the beginning, thinking with ideas, not running against time that always come when it comes a project or when it comes to do a big investment in the city. Things can be done economically right and sustainable right. So the key point that I want to ask is, do you feel the same? Because sometimes people just get to a project to renovate the project, and in the middle they think, perhaps I could do this sustainable. But then the economics of transforming something that was not thinking is going to cost higher. And this is the question that architects have, that the possibility to do it right.
Jorge, if you allow
Yes,
me.
of course, I will pass for you.
Yeah, if you allow me, I'd like to use here a word which normally is not doesn't come so well, but the word is holistic. Okay, we have to work together, every one of us. Okay, not only the ones who do the design, but also the people who are using the places. I keep saying that we should hear the persons who are who are inside the building every time during the day, so that we can improve our measures, so that we can improve our solutions. That's very important. Another important question is that I think that the governance is here. Of course, everyone has a word to say, but the governance is very important because just one simple example about the plastic, about the bottles, okay? In Germany, where I was, you have the fund. So when you buy a bottle of water,
incentive.
you have to pay 25 cents, and at the end, you get this money if you give this bottle away. What happens at the street, you do not see one only bottle, because everyone wants. It's not for the money. 25 cents is not so much, but it's the principle, it's the value that it brings, and we should bring the same to the construction, to our cities. The government has to lead ours, have to bring the values to the street. Okay.
Yes. Besides we turn buildings and cities to mitigate the ecological footprint, the emissions, and so on. We also have another issue that I think that is very important, is the climate impacts. Because cities are more vulnerable, and it's more difficult to tackle the extreme events like floods, and also in the summer with the temperatures and so on. We should put the cities more resilience, put in not only in the architectural level, construction, and also governance, the Build Back Better concept, that every time we have an extreme event, not to be the infrastructure, but also service to be undertaken to restart after each event. How can we change an old city to be more resilient? Where we should begin?
I don't know if a new city is
1
more
million
resilient, but I just want to make a comment on the Flavio was saying. People are refurbishing their houses. They are putting away wooden doors, and they are buying cardboard doors, thinking that are better than the old ones. Imagine if you go to Mafra, and we take all the doors of wood, and then we put cardboard doors. So a wood door, you can have a wood door for your entire life. It's a wood door. So wood is working, and it's not unfashionable to have a wood door. But people are refurbishing, are spending their money. some of them are advised, other aren't, I don't know, depends.
We are wasting materials.
But you are wasting materials and you are buying a worse product than you were putting away. So there are people that are gathering what you are putting away, and we have this project in Oporto some years ago that was this, we have this in Belgium, Rotor, it's a bureau that is working with these dismantling old materials from buildings that are not working anymore, mainly offices, and then they reuse it, and for that they did a very interesting thing. They changed legislation because you have to have the validade, como é que se diz?
Validate?
You have
To certificate?
to certificate the life cycle of materials. So to reuse a used material, the law did not allow that, so they changed the law and they proposed a kind of change to reuse all these. So this is very smart because you have a lot of things that you can reuse. But you have to have the construction sector aligned with this. It's not easy because everyone wants to put new, thinking that is better. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not better. As you were saying, sometimes we should go back. So I think it's also to have a technical advice that is very accurate, so you can know that when you are changing, you are putting a worse material and you are contributing to the climate breakdown, and then you can decide if you want to do that or not. And sometimes when you are doing this, you are doing with the best intentions, and maybe this is not the best solution. Maybe you could reuse those doors. This is a simple example, but it's the principle that it's wrong.
Flavio, besides you can also
about your question.
add a comment. Yes.
Yeah, about
please.
your question. How can we bring our old cities back to the roots? I would say that we should always, and it comes from us, always use passive principles. Mm-hmm. I mean, our trees for the shadows, our corridors, which should be larger for the refresh, for the climatization of our cities, the gardens for the regulation of the floods from our rain. Nowadays we have big problems with that, so we have to have areas that are permeable.
I can add that 1 year ago it was done a mistake in this park because all the path that we have running this garden was in how can I say, terra batida, in
clay, or
it was permeabilized. So now they change for impermeabilization mode. So it was a mistake, because my question was this final question was about examples to trying to mitigate these extreme climate events. For example, in Oporto, they put some direct links to the waters, subterranean waters that were in the surface. Yeah. But there's a lot of solutions to trying to recycle the water and so on in the buildings.
There is a lot of, beginning from the roofs, you can collect our waters, we can manage our waters. And another one are the passive elements. We should have elements which make shadows instead of climate, with climate air condition everywhere. So it's very simple. But I would say, just to finish, Porto is a very good example also, because the city, I don't know if you know Porto, but the city, the people lived from the beginning of the north side of the city facing south, the south, so where they catch the sun. On the south side of the city, Vila Nova de Gaia, they put there the wine basement, where there is a shadow, so they don't need the air condition to regulate the temperature there. So that's very simple. So we should get to the roots. Just close. I would like to give this word, because I'm sure we are the first generation on this planet which have the chance to change our planets, not in the future, but in these moments. And the people who are here, which are committed to get these solutions, are the ones who can do it. So let's do it. We have everything to get it.
And your comment also will take me for the last question to Lucinda. That may be a question that you are not well to expect, but how can we have education in these models, to change the behaviors, to change the options that you said at individual behavior and so on?
The education in general or architectural education?
Architecture education.
It's fundamental. So we should be discussing this
and spread also
we should be addressing all these issues in academia, but it's not quite so. But I want to end with a provocation that's also to reevaluate our position, because we are in a privileged situation, no? But Lisbon Triennale is here with very interesting exhibitions, and one of the exhibitions in Museu dos Chiados, it says something that is very interesting to architects to reflect upon. It says that most of the world is building itself without architecture. Architects participate in approximately 5% of the construction. So we have a lot of, mainly the big south, no? And so the global south, as you said. So we have different levels of action. We have the levels where the technicians are already there, are really prepared to act, and they should act. You are right. We should be acting. Yeah. We have the activists telling the politicians what to do, because you have movements, and then the politicians change and create new initiatives, and you could, since the pandemic, you could follow these movements, and then the changing of policies. It's quite interesting. But you also have a territory, and it's a big one, that is people and communities that are dealing with the problems themselves, and we are not there. So it's also, we need to have this conscience and to see that there's a lot to do and a lot of people that need help. And we are just working in a very thin layer, and there are a lot of layers that we need to act with less resources.
Okay, before we finish this panel, I would like also to ask to the audience again if you have any question. Oh, good, 2 questions, great.
I have a question, because I'm not an architect, I have barely the college, but there's a question that I would like to do, that as an architect, do you think that the problem of we don't advance in better sustainable architecture is a social or a cultural problem? Because I see many times the culture and social problems are the main that don't make us advance, but I can see if it's both or any of the both.
Okay, Lucinda?
Well, I would say it's a mental problem, because there was this architect, this English architect, that was called Cedric Price in the 60s, and he was very flamboyant and eccentric person, and he was always criticizing things, and he had this saying that if technology is the answer, what is the question? So we have a lot of technology. If we go to NASA experience and all the aerospatial things that we know, we have machines for everything, so we have a lot of technology. But we need to break this economic, the economic perspective is winning all the others, so cultural, social, ecological. We had this movement in the 60s of the counterculture that was addressing these issues, and we had a lot of artists mainly that was engaged with the ecological issues, and it was it came to the agenda, and regarding also the wars and everything. But the problem is that we have the things we know, but our mental device, it's keeping us from acting somehow. But this is one thing, one layer of the problem. But the other is science is also telling us this a lot of times, since the 60s and 70s, that the breaking point is arriving. We have only 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. But the economical perspective is winning even the scientific perspective. So it's very difficult to break. I don't know, maybe it's not so difficult, but it hasn't been done. Because people are always thinking about how to finance things, and like if this was the big problem, this is not the big problem. The big problem is to design the strategies to solve, and then we go to the finance. The finance is not the first thing; it's the last thing for me. So we have to have the strategy to decide what is important to do, and then we find a way to do it.
Yes, that's
and
why.
we always find a way.
That's why we are
together.
At international debate that are facing the switch of the economic model to try to see and to give more value to the capital, natural
and
capital.
internalizing the externalities.
Yeah, exactly. Flavio, you want to add something?
Yeah, 10 seconds. I totally agree with Lucinda, but I'd like to add something. We have an economic question also. Nowadays, we are importing aluminium from China, we are importing windows from Germany, instead of using wood from our forests, instead of using glass from Marinha Grande, okay? So local is better. I'm not against EU, of course, but we should think local. We should use our products. That also means that the solutions which are implemented in US, in Germany, or in Belgium, or in Sweden are not the best for us.
And who knows to measure the carbon footprint of the building.
Right.
Yes.
I want to add something. That's very interesting, but that collides with this European also idea of harmonizing all the rules inside Europe. So when you have this legislation that we have to obey and to respond, and as technicians we have this responsibility, I think what should be done or could be done is that these global ideas and initiatives from European Union should have local interpretations, as you could say, for each one of the countries, because it's a different scenario, so we could use in a very smart way our resources.
Not only for materials, but also for food and
everything.
So,
for everything.
So one more question from the audience, yes?
So my question goes in line what you are talking. I didn't have the chance to come to this discussion from the beginning, but my question is, so we are building cities for the future, but how can we make it affordable and accessible for everyone? Because it seems that sustainability, we are building and investigating, improving, but it's available or accessible only for a few, that one, the privileged one, and not to the whole society. So how can we improve this and implement some measures to be an inclusive and affordable thing for everyone? So if we want to build sustainable societies.
I will extend also for Lucinda this question, but if someone of Seville wants to answer, can be comfortable also. It's not a provocation. Iris, do you want to say it?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Just shut me down if I get over. So how to make things affordable and how to make things accessible to everyone. I do think, like in the panel just half an hour ago, we talked about everyone having a voice and everyone creating or sort of saying voting for value where they see it. So the vote that you cast when you say, I'm going to take public transport, is to invest in public transport. The vote that you cast when you buy organic products is a vote that you cast for that, to further develop that. Now, obviously there are people that can't afford to make these types of choices. And what I've seen is that this is where governments should make policies to support these people, to make sure that they also get that voice. And then, you know, if people say that they value a sustainable city or that they value green spaces, there will always be an investor that is willing to put that value in for the created revenue. That is how the economy works, that is the system that we are in, and that is how it should work. Does that answer your question?
This is becoming a very interesting discussion. Before I give the word to Lucinda, thank you, Iris. I will also ask you to pass the mic.
Patricia Liz from Savils. So you asked for us to talk, Savils, about this. Just to give my opinion in the both questions you made. I think they are related. And when Cinda said economic is still in front of all the rest of the key things for our environment, that's the main problem. And also the lack of involvement of the government. If we look around, we see all the privates making efforts. We are joining here, we make our efforts to put things in a good track, but it's still a minority of private people. When we will have the governments, the ones that rule, the ones that invest, the ones that really involved in this, economically, socially, and giving a word on these, the things will make difference. A few minutes ago, you mentioned Porto. Porto is on the very good track because City Council made good things for that. So while we maintain, all of us, privates, doing things, which is great, and it's amazing, the effort that not every, of course, but many privates already making, the companies, still, they are already making efforts for this. But the governments, the city councils, all the really committed and the ones that we expect something need to do something strong on this. So, and we will see the countries that are making more effort on this, they will be in front of the others that are not. So this is the main situation. And also for the affordable, of course, we all need to do something and we need to build and try to be creative. As Nuno just said, we need to be creative on materials, on building, and the privates will do a lot of these because we are learning the process. But the governments must be committed also.
Thank you. A round of applause with this intervention. Thank you. I mentioned Porto, it wasn't a random mention. I know the good practice and the good work that they are doing. Lucinda, do you want to add answer to this?
Just a short comment. I would say that governments are mirrors of the communities, and communities are mirrors of the governments. So someone has to break the mirror and change it. I don't know who is going to do it, but we have to, because people are voting, people are doing things we don't like, we change, but we have to change, not quite the persons, but I think our way. I really believe in what Ars was saying, in this idea of the community voice, the gathering community voice, and people being aware of what is at stake here. And if we are aware, we can change. When I was talking about economics, it's not that it's not important. We can see Marina Mazzucato proposals to reinterpret what does it mean, the GPD and all of that. So we have the instruments, model, but we can attribute value in a different way. And we can do that, because if we decided to make in that way, we can look at it again and try to see in another way, because it didn't work and it's not working. It's collapsing for some years, but we are still thinking that it's working. So I think it's a way of reinterpretation, reinvention, but looking at it worked, what it didn't work, and continue, but continue in an inclusive way. And also the economic, when you were saying we are not able to live in the cities, if we didn't waste so much, if we didn't make a lot of transformations that are useless, a lot of them are useless. I'm not talking about the privates, because the private movements or transformations have a purpose and they want to make profit of this, of that, so they are doing their work. But we need regulation from the state, of course, but we also need, I think it's a parallel thing, it's not in a different plan. We need awareness of the communities of what should be here, because if you like to live in a place where a lot of the community is out in the outskirts of the city and you are happy with that, so you live in that city. If you want to include people in the city and want to have a diverse city and a multicultural city and community, you will like to do that. So you are willing to participate and to contribute for that. Yeah. It's a kind of, I think it's...
Jorge.
Yes, Flavio, you have to finish.
Just short, about your question, sustainable construction is affordable. If we do a life cycle analysis, okay, if our demands can be decreased up to 90% on the climatization, on the water production of warm water during the whole life cycle of the building, okay, and you should remember that our buildings, as is said in the regel, it is planned for living at least 50 years, okay? So if we do this life cycle analysis, sustainable construction is always cheaper than normal construction.
So I really agree with your interventions. Also, I also would like to thank you for your participation, for your intervention as speakers. Thank you very much. I would only to add a final statement about how I agree with you. One of the municipal fund that was created in 2014 in the law of urban planning and soils, it's a basis law, Lei de Bases do Ordenamento do Território e do Uso do Solo. This law permits at national level to create a municipal fund for sustainable and for urban planning at environmental and sustainable approach. There are only 3 municipalities that implement this municipal fund. So with this final information, I finish this panel. Thank you for all audience. Round of applause. And also for all speakers during all morning. Thank you very much.